Are you struggling to assess your individual music students in group tasks? Well, struggle no more. I'm here to help. In this presentation called How to Assess the Individual in Group Tasks, I will show you simple strategies that will transform your approach to group assessments in the music classroom. Hi, I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and I'm a music teacher with over 20 years of experience in the grades 7 to 12 music classroom. Assessing your music students is often a daunting task, especially trying to assess the individual in a group task, but it doesn't have to be that way. Join me as I will show you how to make assessing the individual in a group assessment much easier. So let's get started. How to assess the individual in group tasks. So welcome. Hi, I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and my mission is to help busy music teachers like you in classrooms around the world with the resources that you need to teach music appreciation to inspire the next generation of musicians. In the music room, group tasks are a common occurrence. They provide valuable opportunities for your music students to collaborate, develop ensemble skills, and create beautiful music together, we hope. However, assessing individual students within a group setting can be challenging for music teachers. How can we accurately evaluate each student's progress, skills, and contributions when they are part of a larger ensemble? In this video, I'll show you step-by-step how to assess individuals in group tasks in the music room, ensuring that every student's growth and achievements are recognised. So, quick story. This is my beautiful daughter. She's my youngest child, so you can see that she's 29. So this photo was actually taken last week. She achieved one of her big goals of running the Gold Coast Marathon. Now, that's not got anything to do with group assessment, but my daughter is actually studying to be a registered nurse. She's an enrolled nurse at the moment, working in a large hospital with babies in Brisbane, near Australia. But she's, as said, she's at uni, and she recently had to do a group task. Now, she often rings me and says, "Mum, I need to do this. Can you please check blah, blah, blah," which I'm happy to do. I'm happy to do all the spell checking and all those sorts of things for assessments. But she hated this group assessment. She wasn't, for a few reasons. One, she didn't get to choose who she wanted to work with. Two, they didn't ever actually meet in person because it was an online class. And three, when they did the assessment, it was all submitted together, and there was no way for the actual university lecturer, whoever was marking it, to tell who did what. And as a consequence, Kate was trying to get them to do what they needed to do. They failed. Everybody failed in that particular group. And I kept on saying to Kate, this is not right. An assessment, that's the assessment design. The assessment should have been designed so that you could have shown your individual contributions and still did some parts together. And I think that's what we need to be able to recognise as music teachers, that we have kids who work together, but within that group, there are kids who are working up here and there are kids who are working, if I take my hand further down, you know what I mean. There's some kids who are not doing very much, or the very, very, very minimum. So that's one story. Another quick story. I'm going to go back to the 80s, showing my age. I was in high school. I was in grade 9. And it was an English assignment. And I had to do a group task. I was put with the two nerdy tech boys, which I thought, great, when we do this task, we're going to do really well. No, because we were actually asked to do a recording of a radio program, which I thought, yay, I'm keen for that. I'm more than happy to do that. But again, I remember getting a bad mark because the two boys, they were more worried about playing with all the knobs and anything else than actually doing the assignment. And it was really frustrating as a student. I remember this very well, doing this assignment and not getting any sort of recognition for the part that I did, because I actually did most of the work. They didn't do much at all. And that's the frustrating bit. And just remember, if that's something I remember, and I'm sure you are familiar with this, that's what your kids are experiencing as well. So we want to make sure that when they're doing group tasks, because music is by its very nature is doing things in groups, that the individual is recognized. Okay, and that's the important thing. So let's get started. So again, common problems that we have with group assessments: recognizing the individual contributions, which I just sort of touched on. Lack of student participation. Not everybody's going to do everything, okay? A wide variety of musical skill levels in your classroom. You're going to have kids who are amazing and kids who can barely clap on the beat. Let's face it. A lot of students to assess. As music teachers, we see an awful lot of kids, and we have to assess an awful lot of kids. Group dynamics, kids who don't necessarily work well together. And one of my main problems was absenteeism. I had a lot of kids who didn't turn up all the time, so they didn't know what was happening in their group when they came to the assessment. And so I had to sort of, think about how can the kids who have been there and done all the work and consistently done the work be recognised for what they've actually done. So it's impossible to overcome all of these problems, but we can alleviate some of them so that students who are working hard do get the results they want, and those who are not completing all the parts of the assessment to their best ability also get the results that they deserve. This is where Kagan Pies comes in. And I haven't gone crazy, and I'm not talking about food. It doesn't make sense. So many years ago, I've been teaching, as I said, for a very long time, and this is at my previous school, and my current school, I've been there for about 9 years. Anyway, I was lucky enough to receive some PD that was actually useful to me as a music teacher. And you know what it's like as a music teacher, there's not a lot around for us. That's why this conference is so great. As a school, we had training in what was called the Kagan Cooperative Strategies. Please note, I am not a trainer for this. I'm not affiliated in any way with them. But what I do love and what I have done is I've done a lot of experience using their strategies in the classroom with a lot of success. And what I've developed over time has been a result of keeping this thing, PIES, in mind when I'm designing my group assessments in my classroom for my students. PIES stands for Positive Interdependence. I, individual accountability. E, equal participation. And S, simultaneous interaction. What that means. Positive interdependence, the emphasis of the importance of students relying on each other for success. And again, we know that in music, that if you've, like, for example, if you've got a drummer who can't stay in time and the rest of the ensemble falls out of time pretty quickly. I've had students in the past where I'm literally winding them up, like, come on, keep that pace up. So that positive interdependence. Music, we do this naturally. Individual accountability, stressing the need for each student to contribute and be responsible for their own as well as the group's learning. So everyone having a part to play. Equal participation, encouraging all students to actively participate, encourage in the group and engage in the group task. And there'll be some that just don't do much. And the last one, simultaneous interaction, helping and supporting students to understand the importance of fostering frequent and meaningful interactions among the group and the class as a whole. And I'll just go back to that equal participation for a minute. It's interesting. I had a student a couple of years ago. She was in grade 7. She'd be probably grade 10 by now. No, maybe grade 11, actually. She was a champion tennis player, fantastic tennis player, but she really did not cope being in group tasks because as a tennis player, she was so used to being on her own. So this is why group tasks are fantastic beyond the classroom, because it actually develops those skills, because we all need to be able to work with other people. So the benefits of using PIES: enhanced collaboration and teamwork among students, improved communications and listening skills, increased student engagement and motivation, and promotes a positive and inclusive learning environment. So how can we apply this in our music classroom? So let's look at positive interdependence. You've got to assign specific roles or responsibilities to each student within the group. And that's the key. So if you're assigning those individual responsibilities, when you come to marking them, you can see, you ask them, what are they actually doing? And then you can see, you can actually assign a mark or a grade, however you want to do it, to that student and their contribution to the group. You want to encourage students to support and assist one another, and you want to emphasize the interdependence of the group's success. If everybody participates and if everybody has a good go at it, you'll do well. Individual accountability ties in, everything ties in here. Clearly define individual expectations and tasks. So who's going to do what? Hold each student responsible for their contribution to the group. Provide opportunities for individual reflection and self-assessment. And again, this is that key to having that individual accountability. If you've got that individual accountability built into the assessment, like my daughter wishes she did, then you've actually got something to actually mark on and see what each student has done. And it's very easy when you're looking at the performance, who's done what and who is actually doing what, but it's sometimes harder behind the scenes to see who actually really did contribute the most. Equal participation. Establish group norms and that promote active engagement for more members. encourage turn-taking and sharing of ideas during discussions and rehearsals, and provide scaffolding and support for students who may be less confident or reserved. And look, this is where that formative assessment type thing where we do in the music classroom, we just go around and check on each group and see how they're going, and maybe give some of them a little nudge in the right direction. And the last one, simultaneous interaction. Incorporate activities that require students to communicate and interact in real time. And again, this is what we have to do in music. You can't sort of play a part the day before and then play another part the day after and expect them to work together if they're not actually happening at the same time. So again, in music, we do this anyway. Use technology tools for collaborative composition or improvisation, and facilitate structured discussions and performances that encourage dialogue and feedback among students. And again, this is something you need to build into your lessons. So tips for implementing. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So bear with me, okay? You've got to plan and structure group tasks thoughtfully, ensuring that PIE's principles are integrated. You need to model and explicitly teach the expectations of positive independence, individual accountability, equal participation, and simultaneous interaction. Now, for me, I have been recording my kids' their performances for years. And so I use them like past performances from other groups from previous years so that the current cohort can have a look. And then we talk about it. How can you tell that group worked well together? How can you tell that group did not work well together? And again, it sort of gives them an idea of, this is what we're expecting. And you need to provide ongoing feedback and support to help students navigate the group dynamics effectively, because there are going to be some who just don't cope with working with others. And, again, I think of another student, she's in grade 11 this year. And when I had her in year 7, it was the first time we realised that she had to work when she was working in a group, she couldn't. And she really, really struggled. But it also started to show a few other things. And it later meant that there was actually something underneath going on that was just happened to come out in my music classroom. So what could this look like in your music classroom? I wonder. So this is an assessment task that I have to use in my school, and this is exactly what it is. I've literally just blocked out what the headers where the school is, and obviously the names of the teachers, the staff, because, it's not fair for me to do this. This assessment task, the outcomes that you can see down the bottom have changed slightly over the years, but it's the same sort of thing. So this is what we have to actually do when we're handing out an assessment task. This is for grade 7. So stage 4 for us in New South Wales is year 7 and 8. And for my school, our kids do music in year 7 for the whole year, and then they do visual arts in year 8 for the whole year. And then from 9, 10, 11, 12, they get to choose. So this is just, an assessment task that we get. And this is one of the first assessments. Actually, this is the first assessment task they actually will do for music in grade 7. So you can see that that's what it looks like. Again, pause this. I'm not going to read through this. You're very clever. I know you can read. But if you want to have a good look at it, please pause it. But I'm including it into your into this. You're going to get a copy, okay? But let's get into this little bit. So I've just blown this up. So the task description is to compose, arrange and perform a piece of music based on the pentatonic scale and time signature provided by the teacher. Now, we usually do it in 4/4. Students are to work in groups of between 3 and 5 students. Each group must have at least 2 melodic parts and 1 rhythmic part. A copy of the composition and answers to the question must be submitted by each member of the group with their name and the class clearly labelled, because we've got all year 7s doing this. It's really easy to get them mixed up. And time will be given in class for students to create and rehearse their compositions. So not only do they compose, but they have to perform. So we're hitting a couple of outcomes, and we like to do it that way because, again, we're hitting a couple of outcomes and it makes it so much easier. And there's been a bit of a process for this over the years. So this is what we used to use as our performance marking criteria, and it was based just on our outcomes. And you can see there, now we are supposed to, when we report on grades A to E, okay? But we found that this was a problem, and this actually was a big problem for individual accountability. So that's what we used to use. And this was the composition, okay? Again, A to E. And this is what we moved to. And this has made it this has been a game changer for us as a faculty. We do this for music and art across from 7 to 12. We do it in all assessment tasks now, and it's much easier. So those numbers there, 4.4, they refer to the outcome, okay, and 4.5, I just haven't got them in there. And you can see, though, that 4.4, it's out of 10, 15, 20, and 10. And this is where the difference comes in, because when you're actually, look, some things we incorporate just so we've got kids getting some sort of mark, okay, and they might only get 5 out of 5 for the whole thing, because that's all they've done. But you can see there, completes all the planning pages, notates composition on texture chart. That's something that's included. I'll show you in that in a minute. But this is where the individual accountability comes in, because they create the composition and they perform it together. But what they're actually handing in is not only that performance, but this written part. And that's where, as a teacher, I can go, well, okay, this might be 5 kids in this group, and yes, they might all get A's, all right, but there'll be some who might say it's out of 20, who might be sitting on a 17 out of 20, and other kids who are a 20 out of 20. Okay, and it's made it much easier for us to actually differentiate who is first in class and everything. So again, this is the performance one. So I've just put it over 2 pages so you can see it. And we like to, one of our outcomes is actual participation in class. And so we're not technically supposed to assess that one, really, but we do, because active participation in practical lessons. And that, again, can be the biggest difference, because there could be some kid on the day of the actual presentation who actually gets up and does something, okay, which is great. But they might actually do something in the performance and get some marks there, but they're not going to do as well as the other kids who I know have actually done the right thing all the way through. And I just take notes on who's doing what. And let's face it, we know who's doing what in the classroom. So let's get practical. So I looked and did some research. So I teach here in New South Wales in Australia. I looked and I found the Michigan outcomes. Okay, so I looked at a few different ones. So I thought, which ones could I actually use that would actually make sense to do this with? So again, I'm not going to read them, but these are the ones that I was picking out and thinking, well, which ones could I actually use to do the same sort of task? So I chose 2 different outcomes just to, again, this would take too long if I went through every single one, but just to focus on and give you an idea of how to do that individual accountability. So the ones I was looking at was improvised basic rhythmic and melodic variations, and improvised short melodies over given rhythmic accompaniment, each in a consistent style, meter, and tonality. So again, if we go back to the task description, we can still use the same task description to compose, arrange, and perform a piece of music based on the pentatonic scale and time signature provided by your teacher. Now, in class, what we have done by this stage is performed a lot on tuned and untuned percussion, and some djembes, and usually some bucket drumming. So I give the kids those instruments to actually have a go at. That's why it's got to be 2 melodic pieces, and I only let 1 djembe in each group. Otherwise, you'd have a whole group of djembes, and as much as they love it, you can't tell who's doing what, and it's too hard for them to differentiate in each part. So I give them a couple of pieces that we've actually done in class and say, now it's your turn to actually arrange them. And, you would think, oh, same piece. I've been using the same 2 pieces probably for about 10, 15 years, and I've never had 2 kids or 2 groups ever perform it exactly the same. They always come up with their own arrangement, their own structure, everything. And so it works. Okay, so find something that works with you. If you're going to do this in your own classroom, have a go. The songs that we've actually chosen were pentatonic songs, and we know that if we said to the kids, use these particular notes, it's going to sound good. Okay, that's why. So you can see there, again, between 3 and 5 students. Each group must have at least 2 melodic parts and 1 rhythmic part. So what I say was the melodic parts, one's got to do the melody. Okay, so that could be singing if you want it to be. And the other one, the second melodic part, has got to be some sort of melodic ostinato that goes with it, all righty, or another part that they've actually made. And then also 1 rhythmic part. So that could be someone keeping the beat, that could be someone doing some sort of rhythmic ostinatos or whatever. Again, I've had lots of groups do amazing things. I will link in this, okay, to some YouTube clips of my kids. I've got their faces blocked out, but so you can see what I mean with what's done. Some of them are great, some of them are fantastic, some not so fantastic, but it's good to have a good variety. So when you're designing a task, you need to actually think about, because the main thing is that individual accountability has got to be built into your assessment. It's got to be there in the beginning. But once you've done it, you don't have to do it again. And look, again, you know, as a music teacher, you're probably teaching all the kids in that grade level. So you're using the one assessment across the whole grade. It's like you don't have to do it every single different one. You don't. And honestly, at my school, the last few years, we have a gifted class, okay, and we have kids who are probably reading at grade 1 level. Okay, that's the difference I've got. And it works for all of them. So these are the things you need to ask. What are we asking these students to do? What will the final product look like? What will it look like at the end? And what are the little things they've got to do along the way? So let's break this down into mini tasks. So if we look at improvised basic rhythmic and melodic variations, so this is what we're asking them to do. Really, they're completing the planning pages, okay? So in the task, they're improvising and planning at least 2 different melodic ostinatos, but you might say they have to plan at least 3, okay? But I wouldn't say 1, I'd say at least 2 for the composition. Improvises and plans at least 2 different rhythmic ostinatos for the composition. Now, they can do this as a group, but they've got to record it individually. Notates the composition, however you choose to do it. We do it on something what's called a texture chart, which my colleague showed me how to do. It's like game changer. Wish I'd known that much earlier in my career. And all review questions are completed to personal best. And we put that personal best in there deliberately, again, because we've got kids who, you know, really struggle to actually write an answer in a sentence. And then we've got kids who can write an essay on one question if you wanted them to. So again, let's break it down into mini tasks. Let's look at the next outcome. Improvise short melodies over given rhythmic accompaniments, each in a consistent style, meter, and tonality. So the thing is, we've told them that they have to use the time signature given by the teacher, and you have to do it in a pentatonic scale. So that's your thing. And rhythmic accompaniments, well, you might say to them, okay, well, I need to have someone on the beat, one person on the beat, one person doing, you know, I want to hear 2 other rhythmic ostinatos within the piece. Okay, it's up to you. The group improvises and performs a short melody for the music selected for assessment. Okay, however they want to do that. The group improvises and performs at least 2 different rhythmic ostinatos for the music selected for assessment, accurately maintains a consistent tempo, accurately maintains a consistent pentatonic tonality. Every member of the group is used, that's key, and each part of the ensemble is clearly heard and identified, no doubling of parts in the ensemble. Now, I always put that one, no doubling of parts, because for me, when my kids finish in grade 12, one of the criteria for the HSC, which is a higher school certificate, is they can't perform in a piece where they're getting assessed for their final exams, where there's 2 people doing the same part. Not allowed. Okay, so if they were in a really big, say, big ensemble, we don't necessarily, there are orchestras and things like that, but that's not something we do in our classroom music. There can't be 2 kids singing at the same time, the same part. There has to be harmonies or something different, or there can't be 2 guitarists doing exactly the same thing, or 2 bass players, whatever. Can't have any doubling of parts. So I started in year 7, say, this is what you have to do, no doubling of parts. So everybody has to be doing something different to make it sound good. And it works. So again, this is my interpretation of those 2 particular outcomes. So we've got improvised basic rhythmic and melodic variations. And the last one there is that improvised short melodies over given rhythmic accompaniments in each in a consistent style, tonality, and meter. So I just break it down into mini tasks. So the first one completes all the planning pages. Second one improvises and plans at least 2 different melodic ostinatos for the composition. The next one improvises and plans at least 2 different rhythmic ostinatos for the composition. One should be melodic. Yep, I did do that, sorry. Notates the composition, and all review questions completed to personal best. Now you can see, now in a group, they might perform these beautifully, but if one kid doesn't do all these in their actual written part, that's where the difference comes in, and that's where that individual accountability comes in, and that's how you're assessing that individual in the group. And again, there's that other part there. I'm not going to read through all that because you're clever and I'm sure you can read. This is just a bit bigger so you can see it. So I've already gone through that one. And you can see here, this is the other one. So again, the group improvises and performs a short melody, blah, blah, blah. So accurately maintains a consistent tempo. It's really easy to see which kids actually can stay in time and which kids can't. So this is where you can go there. Now, I've put this in as a 0 to 4, which is your A, B, C, D, F, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is how I do it. So I'd literally do that. So for this particular outcome, when I'm putting this into what we call Markbook, or your wherever you're recording this, for that outcome, whatever it Art M273, say a kid, they got a 2, a 3, whatever, and they maybe have ended up with 16 marks for that. So let's just go back. Yeah, so they ended up with 16 out of 24. You put in that 16, but when you're actually doing the assessment, the actual Markbook, you set it up so that you might be putting in a numeric value, but it spits it out as a grade, and they get a grade for that particular outcome. That is maybe a C or a D, whatever it happens to be. Okay. So let's break it down. What you need to do is these 7 things. And again, I've put them into the handout so you can have a look yourself. And I've put quite a few things in there in the handout so that you can break it down yourself. I wasn't going to have time to do that for you or with you, but you can obviously do this yourself following these steps. Decide on the type of task and what the end product will look like. That's the main thing. The next one, decide on the outcomes you will assess. If you're anything like me, I have to have an assessment schedule and I have to have handed it in the year before. So if for me, our school year is more of a calendar year, we normally have to have our assessment schedules for 2024, say for 2024, done by November of 2023, so that they're all getting checked and stuff before they actually get handed out to kids the following year. Decide on the outcomes you're going to assess. Write a student-friendly task description. Break down the task into smaller mini tasks that your students will complete. Match the mini task to the outcome and create your marking rubrics, which is what I was just showing you. Teach the skills in the tasks and give students time to complete them. Record the end product by each group and then assess each student using the recording and the individually completed parts. And that's how I do it. So that's how you get that individual bit. You break it all down, you let them do their group assessment, you get their written part. Now, I literally will sit there when I've we've done our assessments, and I'll say, okay, first group, come and give me all your sheets, second group, whatever it is. And I keep the sheets, all their sheets together in groups, so that when I go to mark that group, I can just pull them all out and I have them all in front of me. And I go, okay, bang, bang, bang. I'll watch the performance and do that. And if I have to watch it a couple of times, usually only a minute long, okay, and do that. And then I can go back and mark them, okay. And that's how they get that individual mark. If you'd like to know more about this or anything else with music teaching, as said, I teach grades 7 to 12. So the things I talk about on my blog are for that age group. So that middle school group that you would call that, through to year 12. I've got stacks of free stuff over on my blog, especially about the elements of music, because that's the thing I really love to talk about. And you can see there, it's juliajulia.com. If you're looking to buy some music resources and you'd like to save yourself some money, don't forget, there's a lot of us in this conference who are actually having a 20% off our entire store for the duration of the conference. So make sure you go and grab yourself a bargain while this conference is on. And thank you so much for watching. I hope that all made sense for you. As I said, this is something I've been doing for many, many years, assessing the individual in a group, which is hard. Again, and as I've already explained in the video, why we need to do that. Now, in the description below will be information about how you can get your hands on the actual handout that goes with this. And there's a lot of things in here that will be really helpful. I've included things like my old assessments, okay, what they used to look like and what they look like now. So if you wanted to, you could run with them. You would obviously have to change your own marking rubric to match your outcomes, because as said, here in my state of New South Wales, we currently, I do say currently because we're supposed to have had a new syllabus probably for the last 10 years, but we won't go there. That's what I'm using, and I've only got 12 outcomes for my stage 4, my year 7s and 8s. Okay, so that's why that's there. But as I said, there's information in that description below. If you have any questions, I will be in the group. When this actually airs, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning for me here in Australia. So please put all your questions in there. Know that I will get back to you and I will actually answer questions. More than happy to do that. As I said, put the questions, any questions that you have below, and I'll get back to you with hopefully some information that will help you with whatever you've actually asked. Anyway, really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to enjoy this conference. Please make sure you go through and like all the sessions that you've enjoyed, and put some comments there, because your information and your feedback really helps us for the future with the TPT Music Crew Conference. This is my first one, and I'm really being happy to be part of it. And I can't wait to hear from some of you and how you've actually used maybe some individual accountability in assessments in your music classes. Until next time, I'm Julia from GU Teaching Resources, and happy teaching. Bye.